Welcome to the session number 2, tutorial number 2. Plan resource management. At the end of this video tutorial, you'll be able to plan resource management in a project or a program. The resource management plan. An effective resource management plan has many different components. First, we need a policy or procedure in place for how we are going to identify the resources. These should be the procedures we use to both define and quantify any of the necessary human and physical resources that will be used in order to accomplish our project goals. We should also have information on how we are acquiring these resources into our project team. These strategies and policies could be as simple as knowing that we are going to have resources from our functional management, or as comprehensive as having a detailed, comprehensive strategy, bidding policies, and procurement policies, etc. In addition, we should have clear identification of roles and responsibilities. We should outline roles and responsibilities that each team member will play within our project. Also, necessary competencies needed to be in place. This can help us to ensure we assign the right responsibilities to the right person. We also should identify the leadership of the project team. Also, you may have the right level of autonomy decided and agreed for your team members. This will help the project team to make their own decisions appropriately. Project organization charts come next. These are the graphical displays of the team showing reporting relationships and grouped by either function or other methods such as departments, deliverables, etc. These organizational charts may have varying level of formality and details depending on what your project team needs. We should consider how project team resources will be managed as well. This will outline how and when team members are brought into the project and indicate how staffing and management activities should take place. Further, this should include details on how members should be released once their work is complete. Will the team members work on any other projects other than the current project? Is a valid question you may ask from your project team. If so, necessary allocation has to be adjusted to match the capacity. What comes next is training needs. Any project will have specific set of skills and abilities that are needed from the project team members. Therefore, it's crucial that as a project manager or the resource manager, you look into the training needs. We must also consider all the necessary soft skills required for the given project. Initially, you may conduct a training need analysis to identify what kind of training will be required for your project team. Once you have the gap analysis, the next step for you would be to decide the budgeting and the timing for your training needs. Accordingly, allocate the trainings before or during the project. Once that is done appropriately, you'll have a team who is capable, competent of doing the right job. Team development. What kind of team development activities should be planned for? Well, team development is not as simple as providing a training or helping the team to gain necessary knowledge and the certifications required, but rather helping the team to become a high-performing team come together as one single unit to achieve the project goals. You should also look into team soft skills, competency required, and behavioral aspect. While you're looking into the performance measures, you also have to look into the behavioral measures. Do my team members act right? Is their behavior appropriate? Team should be ready to deliver the project successfully. Resource calendars come next. While we have seen earlier, when it comes to estimating activity durations and estimating activity costs, these are also important for understanding what working days and shifts are possible for project work for each different team member and each resource that is available in our team. We can understand how our resources are allocated over the project time window. This will allow us to effectively use our human resources and other physical resources that are required for the project to be successful. Finally, we should include some plans for rewards and recognition. How can we enhance the morale of our team? How can we motivate our team? A few questions you may ask during the planning resource management process. You may decide various ways of rewarding and recognizing your people, which may include financial benefits, other benefits such as giving holidays, going on team outing, or just appreciating the great work. In building high-performing teams, rewards and recognitions plays a key role, and therefore you must invest on it. You should also look into roles and responsibilities. Project manager must clearly show the roles and responsibilities of management, team members, and other stakeholders. Responsibility assignment matrix can be used, or RASI is another matrix used to show roles and responsibilities. Plan human resource management. Planning human resource management or resource management involves three steps. First, planning inputs. Second, planning tools and techniques. Third, planning your outputs. Having clarity on these three areas will ensure that you pay the right attention, right effort into the planning activities to ensure that you have the optimal resources available and allocated for your project. If you look at the input, there are quite a few inputs that you need to plan for. The first, project charter. Second, project management plan. Third, project document. The fourth input that you are considering is the environmental factors. Lastly, organization process assets. Once you have planned these things, then you can look into the tools and techniques that you may use in resource planning. There are 4 tools and techniques that are being discussed in this tutorial. They are expert judgment, data representation, organizational theory, and meeting. These are the major ways for planning the human resources for your project. Finally, once you have the inputs, tools, and techniques finalized, you may look into the outputs that you want to produce. As you see, there are 3 outputs that we consider during the planning resource management phase. Number 1, resource management plan. Second, team charter. Third, project document updates. In the coming slides, we are going to discuss these things in detail to understand what they are and how exactly we can use them in our planning activity. The first input, project charter. A project charter is a living document outlining the issues, targets, and framework of a process improvement effort. It focuses on 6 different areas. First, problem statement. The problem captured in the form of a measurement. So it's important that you have a clear problem statement defined for your project. Second, business case. The business case is a document that explains the reasoning behind your project. Why should we work on the given project? Third parameter that we are discussing in the project charter is a goal statement. The targets of the process measurement. What exactly the goals for your project? It's important that we understand these goals at a high level. Fourth is a timeline. When and what activities will be done during your project? How long is your project gonna take is an important thing that needs to be cleared before you jump into the execution. The fifth parameter that we are looking at is a scope. What's in and what's out of the project. It's important that we have a clear agreement on the scope that we are going to work on. Lastly, team members. The people who will participate in the project will need to be decided and agreed so that we can do the necessary arrangements to make these people available for your project. Certain segments of the project management plan directly impact the resource management planning, and they include quality management plan. Quality management plan describes the type and grade of people needed to perform quality-related activities to achieve project goals. Scope baseline is also a key input as it describes the deliverables that must be generated by project team by influencing resource requirements. Based on the scope baseline, the necessary resources could be arranged timely in order to meet the deliverables expected. Project schedule among the project documents is one of the documents that impact the resource planning. Project schedule will indicate when the resources will be required for the project. Requirements documentation is another document that is important as an input for resource management activities. Risk register can be another handy input as it describes the threats and opportunities that influence resource planning. Stakeholder list is another input that is important for resource planning. Stakeholder list will list down the stakeholders who may have influence, impact, or interest on resource planning. Particularly, this may be useful to understand who will be responsible for the resources within our project scope. By working with such stakeholders and helping them to understand the value of these resources can control and enhance the resource utilization. Resource planning includes company culture and structure. You may discuss what organizations will be involved in your project. Are there any hidden agendas? Is there anyone who does not want this project? What is the availability of training for the team members? You may discuss geographical distribution of resources, which can impact resource management as well. Availability of resources also comes to play here. Who are the people available? What expertise we have? What tools and capabilities exist within our organization that can be used in our project? What do we have to procure from outside? Furthermore, what are the marketplace conditions at the moment for the physical resources and human resources we need to accomplish the project? Among the organizational process assets that impact resource management, one important input is resource policies and procedures. at organizational level, as well as the procedures to do with security and safety. Any resource management templates that exist within the organization will have to be considered too. They can be a great help and allow consistency. At the same time, if there are historical information that can be referenced in planning resources, they can come handy in your resource management planning as well. Now, let's have a look at the tools and techniques used in resource management. Among many other tools and techniques used, expert judgment is one of them. Expert judgment can be helpful in understanding what roles are needed in the project, as well as what skills are needed in each role. Also, to understand what level of labor effort is needed for your project. This also talks about what reporting relationships should exist. How much time should we allow for acquisition for labor and training? What risks and limitations may exist? Lead time and other resource acquisition considerations. Also, management strategies for procurement and logistic partners. Considering the judgment or the viewpoints of experts can greatly help to speed up and maintain the right consistency level. What you see on the screen is a hierarchical type chart. Hierarchical type charts are used to show positions and relationships in a graphical top-down format. An example for this hierarchical type charts are organizational breakdown structure, which is also known as OBS, and a resource breakdown structure, which is also known as RBS. For example, here we see an organizational breakdown structure, and as you see, it shows the responsibility by department. For example, our project is hot rotation search helicopter. And as you see, there are 3 departments: machinery, planning, and engineering. Each department will have their specific responsibilities assigned. And another type of hierarchical type of chart is resource breakdown structure, which is also known as RBS, and it breaks down the work by type of resource. On the other hand, we see materials. Note that human resources and also the materials, tools, equipments are resources of a project. And steel ropes are resources of your project belonging to materials, and these steel ropes are needed to complete WBS 5.7 and WBS 8.9 through construction and mainframe construction. As you see, which type of resource will be used and which work is identified in resource breakdown structure. Resource breakdown structures will play a huge role in understanding the resource requirements and its hierarchy. Second type of organization chart is matrix-based charts. These are used to show who is responsible for what in a project. And the 2 common types of these matrices are responsibility assignment matrix, which is also known as RAM, and RASI. RASI stands for Responsible, Accountable, Consult, and Inform. And actually, RASI is a more detailed version of RAM, which is Responsibility Assignment Matrix. Here we see an example of Responsibility Assignment Matrix, RAM. There are 2 activities, Activity A and Activity B. And there are 4 resources assigned to these 2 activities. Let's have a look at the resources and its assignments. If you look at Activity A, it's primarily assigned to Jess, and Erica is the secondary resource assignment for the same activity. On the other hand, activity B is on Jude. Jude is primarily responsible for that activity, and Paul is a secondary resource assigned to activity B. So this way, we have a clear agreement and understanding about the resources and its responsibilities. This is an example of RAS matrix, which is a detailed form of RAM matrix, responsible assignment matrix. As you see, for each activity, who is responsible, who is accountable, who is consulted, and who is informed is defined in the matrices. For example, let's take one activity as an example. Collect requirements. So in this RAS chart, it shows who is responsible, who is accountable, who is consulted, and who is informed in terms of this requirement. So Carlos is responsible for collecting requirements. Who is accountable? That is Ben. Ben is accountable for collecting requirements. Anne is informed, and Gina and Ed are consulted in terms of this particular activity. So it's crystal clear who is doing what. Once RASI is defined, it creates a lot of clarity in terms of understanding how the resources be allocated during the project. And the third type of organization chart is text-oriented formats. And these are used to show responsibility in detailed descriptions. These text-oriented formats include information about responsibilities, authority, competencies, and qualifications. As you know, responsibility is defined what you will be doing, what are your activities in a project. Authority defines what is your decision level. What are the initiatives you can take on your own without asking to an upper person in the organization. Competencies define what a person knows about. For example, you can ask team leading project management as competency, or contract management, risk management as a competencies required for the project requirement. These are all competencies and qualifications defined. What are the specific responsibilities required for a role? For example, if you'll be assigning a project manager, and PMP certification might be a requirement, then you should list in the qualifications area of this text-oriented format in your project. Organizational theory explores behavior and teams. This can lead to saving in time, cost, and effort on project work. Effective tactics vary from organization and projects, and we may need to adapt them as the project work progresses. Finally, meetings can be very important for resource management as well. Meetings are generally used to plan and manage work being done, identify the good work done by the team. Meetings also helps you to discover the gaps and underperformance issues. Meetings could share the best practices used on similar projects. Meetings also can help improve project productivity. Also, to collect the lessons learned. All in all, you could use the meetings in resource management planning as a very effective tool. So far, we discussed the inputs, tools, and techniques for the planned human resource management process. Now let's have a look at the outputs of planned human resource management. One of the major outputs of planned human resource management process is resource management plan. Resource management plan is the output of planned human resource management process. It provides guidance on how project human resources should be defined, staffed, managed, and eventually released. It also describes the training needs, development, and recognition for human resources. It also describes the physical resources, infrastructure, equipment, and facilities. Resource management plan is an absolute must you have to get right as a project manager. Resource management plan also specifies control procedures and policies. These procedures and policies will govern how you could manage the resources within your project. It also talks about the roles and responsibilities of your team members that include stakeholders as well. So it will talk about the role, authority, responsibility, and competency level of your resources. Another important aspect that is included in resource management plan is a project organization charts. So as we learned, there are three types of organizational charts, which are hierarchical, matrix-based, and text-based. The next major output of plan resource management process is team charter. Team charter declares team values, rules, and guidelines. Team values will help the team to understand what sort of values are appreciated by the project environment. It also talks about communication guidelines. What channels do we have to follow? What are the ways and means of communicating with the stakeholders and the project teams? What mode of communication is used? Important areas that you need to plan during planned human resource management phase. It also helps you to make decision making on certain resource related activities. Another thing that is included in the team charter is a conflict resolution procedure. In case of a conflict, what is the way to go about? In case of an escalation from the client, what is the way to handle it? It also talks about meeting procedures. What type of meetings are held during the project execution? And what times will be appropriate for holding those meetings? Finally, it also talks about team guidelines. As a team, how can we work together? What kind of ethics and guidelines should we follow? Are all important things that we need to worry and plan during our planned human resource management process. So another output of planned human resource management process is project document updates. At the end of the planning of human resources, there are various documents that are being updated by the project manager or the resource manager. So we're going to list down 5 of them and going to have a brief discussion about them. The first one is assumption log. So this is a living document that will be maintained throughout the project, which will list down all the assumptions associated with the project delivery. The second document that is updated is the risk register. It's another living document that must be updated and kept up to date. That is where you log all the opportunities and threats associated with your project delivery. Third, issue log. Any issue that comes up during your project needs to be listed down in the issue log. Fourth, dependency log. These are the dependencies that you have in your project context. It could be internal dependencies where your deliverables are dependent on another component, or they can be external dependencies. Whatever it is, you need to identify the dependencies and list them down so that you can keep track of them effectively. All in all, you put all these four things together into one document and could call it RAID. RAID stands for risks, assumptions, issues, and dependencies. That way, as a project manager or a resource manager, you can handle all the risks, issues, dependencies, and assumptions associated with your resources. Congratulations! We have completed discussing how we could plan human resources and physical resources for your next project. Let's meet in the next tutorial.